Hey, this is actually, yeah, I realized this was something. Okay, it's on.
So there's another addendum issue, which is crazy because Aubrey started it. I put some kind of comment in there that's nothing to do with Aubrey, with what Aubrey said, and then Lily put something in that does. It's like 3 disconnected things, and so I just want to break them up, separate them out as make them issues, and decide what's 209A. Well, you know, what needs to go out in this release and what doesn't. So I just wanted to, and there's like, I just need to check. It's like, why are these boxes NA and these boxes are empty? You know, it's that kind of thing. Like, what should we do here? So I think they're pretty short questions, and I can get them cleared. I started working on the what the court wants. So I was about to do that, and I thought, no, I want to get this thing just pushed, make sure it's okay, and then and also I'm getting a weird error on the addendum on the defendant information form, which I didn't get until this morning. And I think it's just the way the addendum is formed. It's asking for text list fields or text, I don't know, something like that. So if I can get that sorted, I think we're good on that one. But we are moving along, David.
Okay, that was really what I was looking for. And we feel like a week out is still a good time for.
Yeah, I do. As long as I can get in touch with Kate on a couple of things, but yeah.
All right,
and
cool.
If you want me to do any coding, let me know too.
Yes, please.
Okay. And what's the best way to figure out what coding you want my help with?
Can we, you tell me what's the best way. Are you quiet or is it just me?
Sorry, Quentin, you're very quiet. I'm not sure if.
Just switched. Is this any better? Maybe it just was far from my mouth. Is that better?
Maybe it's your.
Yes, I think it was far. It's still a little far.
Oh, I think.
We lost someone.
Luke.
Yeah, we lost Luke.
Yeah.
He may not have. He may have been like, wait a second, I don't need to be here for all this.
No, he's going to be here for the. I'm going to talk to him at 1. Yeah. Hi, Pax.
Is it better now? Am I audible?
No.
You're still very quiet.
I'm not sure it's better.
We can't hear you.
Nothing.
No,
I can't hear anything about that.
You don't hear me now?
Now we can.
Okay, now we do, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just switched the headphones and I guess maybe something's wrong with those. Okay. Probably if there are issues, you just want to put my name on them, that works. Or if the most helpful thing is for me to like do some, error program.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think it's probably pretty straightforward. I just am not sure how this addendum works with this particular variable. I had an idea that it might be on the this morning before I had to go to another meeting. I had an idea it was on the template. So I'll look at the template first and see if that solves it. If it's because it's saying this isn't defined. I'm thinking it's commented out everywhere, but I just realized it might be in the template. So I'll see if that deals with it. If it's not, then I'll come back to you or Michelle probably. You know how the addenda work, right, Michelle?
Sometimes,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. This one.
Give it a shot.
Yeah. All right. So that once we get that, if I can get that if I can finish that, the pull request is probably waiting. And then we can get that merged. That should be good. And the other thing I'm not sure about is, and when if you push to a branch and then you want to push again, I'm getting a thing about a git, you're at the wrong head or something.
Detached head.
Detached head is a red herring. Everybody worries about it. It's probably something else. Look at the bottom of the message. And then tell us what's there, but we can troubleshoot this afterwards.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, I know you want me to do some testing on the eviction moratorium so we can trade.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to see if.
Okay, so 209A then, it seems like we have a plan. We're moving. We feel like we're on schedule.
Yeah, because the next thing I'm gonna attack after I get this thing done is the court issues, about the date, time thing, and
change, yeah.
And linking to Mass Legal Help for the examples. I think those are the critical things.
Perfect. All right. So I just wanted to check base there. Then the other thing we have, I think I mentioned it on Friday. We're talking with the appeals court. We're waiting for them to get back to us. They had a standing meeting sometime early this week. They were going to talk at that meeting and then get back to us. So that's something just to think about, maybe forms coming down the pipe from then. And then the other thing to flag, which I think will then segue into our sort of higher level discussion, is that Quentin and I are now trying to provide projects for some of our students. So we're looking for new forms that we can slot in to give to new folks who will be coming on board here. These folks will have a lot less time than a lot of other people, so we'll probably pair them up within teams in our classes to sort of multiply what's available for them. But we're looking for very small scoped forms. So we're probably going to do sort of really simple things that are not dangerous. And so if you have ideas, especially Caroline and Kate, if you have ideas of forms that you think would fit that bill that are not ones that Court asked for, these are just going to be like, we'll pull them from wherever. You know, if it's things as simple as like a name change, you know, I mean, like just nice little simple things that someone for their first.
Do we have alternate? Do we have alternate service? Is somebody working on those already?
Somebody is working on alternate service.
And there are two of them, right?
That is not a simple.
No, they're
That is
not.
not simple. The old one was simple, and then you threw them for a loop, and you're like, oh, now most of the courts are using this new form, and then that was a really hard form to get because they didn't have. It was hard to actually see the form because the way they had the PDF, so actually we turned that into.
Oh,
So yes, but yes, someone is working on alternate service.
okay.
But
And
yes,
we've got some, we can do some parenting time stuff.
yeah.
You think that's too hard, Kate?
I don't know what,
Time
there's not
plan.
really set forms for that.
It's
Right,
fine.
well, that's what I'm saying, is we can just do
Doc
these
access would be fine.
complaints. Oh, well, maybe you and I should talk, not during the meeting about, yeah.
Yeah, I want to
that.
flag this now for people to think about. We don't have to come up
Yeah,
with solutions now.
And Quentin, you had some housing forms that came out of the coalition meeting on Friday, right?
Well,
not
in theory,
simple.
but
They're
they're
not
not
simple.
ready necessarily. That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
challenge. It's like people are going to start working on making the forms, and then we can audit.
I did like the name change idea, David. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
the one issue is that it's supposed to be, the form is supposed to be notarized. So I don't know how,
Okay.
because you have to authorize a carry.
So there's
On
a
it.
waiver for that right now.
Yeah, I think there's a
Oh.
waiver for that now.
Name order, though. So I'm not for it will be long term.
But yeah, name change is a good, pretty simple form.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't actually know where that form lives.
I
So,
have it right here. I just downloaded it.
There's different ones for children and adults.
Yeah, I would stick with for adults. Or at least start with that.
Then you don't have to worry about custody and stuff, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Hmm.
I just put it in the
Okay, well-
chat.
Yeah, so I think what we should do is we have that form, the triage form sheet. People can just add new ideas down to the bottom. And then we'll take those as a menu to click on. And that sort of segues into the notion of, and the important, another constraint on those forms is they're obviously going to be student forms, so they're not going to be done until December. So they have to be forms that don't have a super, like, we need them in October when the moratorium ends sort of stuff going on. So that's the constraint.
You know, we could do some letters, like the demand letter for the security deposit and those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's it. This is why I love these meetings. Those are all wonderful ideas. So,
I laugh a little bit about the demand letter because I feel like that's a project that I've done like a million times. That never
Right.
survives,
Let's
but
do it.
Oh, they've
What
done
was
that.
it? A 93A? Let's do a 93A demand letter. Is it 93A?
So Quentin, are you saying we already have?
I always say never do that.
Your students have done that? Or are you saying, what are you saying?
like it's been like a sample project or something. But I don't doesn't mean that it's necessarily done and that it doesn't have value to do it right in a way that's maintained and follows
Okay.
our conventions. It's also very short to
And
do.
people
so.
use it. I mean, people need it
People
and
will
use
use
it.
Yeah.
Okay, we can look through.
Yeah.
I have another
I think
motion to waive parent education. That's a good one.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's just take these, add them to
Put
does
them on the
everyone?
triage form, right?
Yeah, put them on that form, and then we can talk about them more in depth.
Where does that form live?
That form lives in our Google Doc. I can do it again.
Too.
Doc assembly line projects folder, right?
Yeah, it's in there. It's the mass access text. Oh no, that's the wrong one.
it's this one.
Forms triage, is it forms triage?
Yeah, forms triage.
Well, should we just add these two that we just mentioned? So we see,
Yeah.
Yeah,
name change
and I'll just drop that again in the admin channel.
and
Should we put that, can you make that be sticky in the admin channel?
great idea.
Sure.
I can never
I'll
find
put a
it.
name with it too.
Are you already in, Kate? Are you adding the other form that you mentioned? I don't remember. the
Yeah.
Okay.
Oops. I don't know what I just did. I just did something.
Oh, I see.
I pinned it to the channel. All right, and then this segues into the notion of, so we have things coming through. We have the appeals stuff that's going to come through. We're working on stuff now. I think we've sort of figured out sort of where new capacity and bandwidth is. And I think we've learned that our new capacity and bandwidth is creating some bottlenecks. And so I want to see what we can do to think about to clear those bottlenecks. Quentin, do you want to sort of frame some of what you see there?
So one is really simple, and I think I mentioned it, but not in our admin meetings, which is to track the forms. Maybe I did at one of our standards. So that we have the court's no longer a blocker for when we are able to release things. So that we basically flip the switch when the court approves it, but meanwhile it's up and it's linked and people can see it. So I think I'm just going to do that. It's going to require changing any of the forms that are in that queue, and we'll probably want to add that code to handle it as a model for any new forms that aren't yet being sent to the court for review.
So you're saying there's code that we, in existing interviews that are submit to court, and you can put code in that just turns it on and off?
Yeah, I just want to think through, okay, we're going to set a flag somewhere, so it's really easy to undo that change. Well, we'll say, okay, it's approved now. Now we'll show the send to court button before that doesn't. And it will also impact the opening screen of the interview, which will say,
with that sentence, yeah.
Yeah, it'll have to say that we are just generating something you can download and not something that you can send to the court.
That's excellent. Yeah, because that trips people up all the time. That one and yeah, there are a couple screens that trip people
Yeah,
up.
we are at the point where half the stuff we've sent them hasn't been approved yet. So it is a bottleneck.
Mm-hmm.
The two other bottlenecks that I think we're having, one is, trying to really figure out how to limit the scope of what we release so that it really is closer to the state board so we can get things in people's hands.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll really accelerate our production schedule once we get something out there, right? Because once it is available, people will see it and be more inspired to keep adding features that people want on a reasonable timeline too, right? Because they'll know this is going to help people right now who are running into this problem. So I had some ideas for it. I think one idea is, I think that our barriers there are completely internally created. So it's very hard to be okay about releasing something that isn't as good as you think it can be eventually. So one idea was to kind of have visible icons that we can place on there that help people communicate, hey, this isn't done. Don't judge us based on this as the final product. It might get better in a little bit.
I'm very aware. I've had the same noise constraint. It's lunchtime.
I'd say based on features, I really like that idea.
Well, the problem with features is it's very hard to predetermine a reasonable scope of features. So it doesn't necessarily resolve the problem.
I think predetermining a list of features as MVP would also help people get it out. So if we can say these are MVP and they say, okay, I've checked them off the list, and then it goes out. That's, I guess, part of why I find that idea attractive.
Yeah, I think it's a really great process for us to have. But I think that we are just moving a little bit of the responsibility there to coming up with that list of features. So if it's something that's common to every interview, that's great. I suspect it won't be easy to do that because every form we found is really unique.
That would probably be per interview. Would probably be per interview.
So
Well,
the
that'll be
question is
part of
how does that help us
Might just be one more
Adhesive.
job. Is that what you're saying? Might be just be one.
Not just that it's one more job, but it's like it's the same problem, just redefined.
Well, I mean, there has to be a point at which people say, now we're putting it up, right? And that I have found that when people actually think about what MVP is and say, this is MVP, this isn't MVP, that process speeds up. So that's what I've seen. Maybe you've seen something else, but
I think it's a necessary step no matter what for getting things out, but I don't think it will help us solve the problem of people being able to determine what features are getting something out at a minimal scope. I don't think it's solved only by like having us sit down and say, okay, let's go through all the features. So I think we're doing that for the most part. I think we just need a little bit of.
Maybe when people are going through an interview, they could, when they put it, because you're going to have issues, right? I mean, you do your interview, immediately you have issues. So when you put the issue up, you say whether part of posting the issue is to say whether it's MVP or not.
That's what we do. We put
okay.
enhancement
Good
as a tag.
label,
Or milestone or what?
milestone. There we go.
So
Yeah.
we should put it under a milestone.
Yeah, so
The other thing
Maybe having a process where every week we check in and do triage too would help. I think the time is the thing we're missing. So I know we need a list of features. I think this is a good idea. We just have to make sure that it happens at the right time, I think.
I think the question is, so why isn't this happening now, right? So in theory, we've empowered people to make issues and to make a determination about what MVP is. We could add some formalism on top of it to help make that clearer. But the question is, what really is this? What's stopping that from happening now? Is it just the lack of structure? Is the lack of feeling empowered to make that decision? Does someone else need to make the decision?
I think one, it's a lack of, from what I've seen, a lack of feeling of empowerment to make the decision of what is or is not MVP. And I think another thing is kind of a lack of understanding of the amount of time something will take. And also I think something that really contributes to it, and this is more of a like forming habits type of thing, is to not get distracted while you're working on something and say, oh, I'll fix this and I'll just fix that at the same time. And like, oh, now I see this thing, so I'll just do it instead of making an issue. It's like, this kind of culture of like, stick to your issue and just like, like, I guess when teaching people being like, is that the issue, right? Are you still focused on the issue? Are you still focused on the issue? Because I think there's a lot of diverting into other paths that goes on. And I think a good way to deal with that is to say, if you see something, make it an issue and then we'll deal with it, right? Don't fix it, make it an issue and refocus on what you're doing.
Another thing is also just, clarity on what, there's certain things that across the board are going to be post MVP. Review screens come to mind. So we need to have some kind of behavior to model, something that we can show. So the thing is, now things are past MVP. Like, the TRO would have been a good one to say, this is how it was released. This is how it was. This is what you're aiming to get to on your first release. When Lance and I are now ready to release our civil action cover sheet, and for me it's hard to release it because I'm like, there's still so much that I want to improve, but it's just not, you've got to just actually just go and put it out and then work on the enhancements. So I think defining certain things that are post MVP, and then also having can we have an example of what an MVP product looks like?
I think so. I think we could take, in fact, if we want the TRO, I can take an old commit and make it into its own repo.
That would be
and
really
then
helpful.
That can just sit there as a repository of example of MVP.
Yeah. I think that's, so that you can show someone what they're working towards. This is what your first
Tell me
release
which commit, but like, yeah.
should. I'm going to message you just to remind you, okay?
Sure, but I do need to know which commit. I don't know where.
Would Quentin be able to tell you that, or who would be able to tell you that? I don't know. Probably. Am I supposed to know what that is?
It probably doesn't have to be right now, so we can figure it out.
I'm just saying, who do I need to flag?
Quentin and me.
Okay.
Or, just flag Quentin and me, and we'll figure it out amongst ourselves.
Okay.
All right. So, what is our actual solution here then?
So what I wanted to say was, if we can determine an MVP and be clear about those definitions, we can change version numbers, and the version numbers can determine what icon shows. And that way, no one has to manually change the icon. It's just an understanding of the version number, but maybe that wouldn't be simple for most people.
Are
I don't
you-
know.
So
Let's
are
focus
these,
on not technical solutions for now. Let's
Sure,
just
sure.
big picture.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just,
Big
I think it's
picture.
behavior we're trying to change first.
so are these icons going to go on the interviews that our people are actually using?
That was
Yes,
one
let's-
idea. I'm actually, I'm the only person maybe who had that idea, but I'm hearing most
I
of the
think
people
that's
like,
a
okay, we
great
want to have
idea.
models to work for. Okay, so people
Well,
do
okay,
make-
so I mean, the only thing is, if you think about our users, depending on who our users are, if they're lay advocates, that's one thing, or advocates. If they're, you know, if they're getting evicted, you're not going to say, "Oh, come back next year when you get evicted again. You can redo an answer." I mean, that's where I'm a little, you know, a little
And
unsure,
messaging.
because a lot of this stuff is. I mean, they may be looking at different, like,
I think this is more
this
for the
form for this case and the different form for a different case, but I'm a little unsure about that.
I think the idea is to just set expectations so they know that they're either just like filling out a form or they're getting a lot of guidance. Right? Is that-
I
is
also
that fair?
think I also think it's very much about the developer, because if you're like, it's not ready, you know, like, what are people gonna think, right? But it has a little you know, seedling or whatever, and you're like, okay, people know that this isn't my final product. Like, as a developer, I think that would feel better for a lot of people, to be able to say, this is not, you know, what my finished work looks like, or what
It's
this
a
is.
security blanket for the developers as much as anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I do want to
Help
like
them get it out.
I think Quentin was right. Like, let's focus on the process. So, what are the things we need to, like, if we back up, let's say, so table this idea of is it a sapling, is it a seedling, what's language around something like that. We have this notion that we're going to say, here's an example of an MVP. Here are maybe some things that are never in the MVP, like review screens. Anytime you make an issue, you're going to put it in a version. And you're going to be empowered to do that as a developer based upon the model you see here and here. And then there was also a suggestion about timing and touching base with people, say, hey, so what is your feature set for MVP? Is the idea that we would, when we touch base, we say, what is your feature set for MVP? Have you added anything to it? Have you subtracted anything? I mean, what's that look like?
And a label for, you know, when you're not sure, when you need an opinion on it, whether it's MVP or not. So that possibility, so it's not, you know, there isn't a bottleneck of like, I don't know if this is MVP. Like, what do I do with it, right? So there is a place for it to go, that's all.
like a queue for things. So maybe the way to do it would be just to have a label for 2 milestones, and then if it's not assigned to a milestone, it's the backlog, basically, to use like the Kanban.
You can't give 2 milestones to one item. You can only give 1 milestone per item.
I'm saying you just don't assign it to a milestone if you're not sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Version 1 and version 2, and then you, okay, got it.
potentially.
MVP and version 2, and then you assign.
That's what we've
And
been doing
everything
so
else.
far. And it seems to work pretty well for the forms that we've released. But what I'm realizing is that that's just the way we've done that process is through our admin meetings mostly. So, and not every form has gotten that attention of focusing on what features. And maybe something we need to integrate in our reviews when we do like reviews with people on their forms, because we usually identify a lot of issues and we don't always tell people
Yeah.
this is for release, this is for a thing you can improve, but it's not a blocker.
Yeah.
Or a
Okay.
showstopper. Like that for me was you know, what is vital for you to get out in the first release?
Okay, so it sounds like some of that needs to be more clarity from us during reviews, etc. Taking this conversation that has been confined to these meetings and extending it to other places. I think we also then want to, if that's going to scale, we need to have people feel empowered to do some of that on their own too. And that's why we're providing them with this model. You know, here's an MVP example. Here are the things you don't need to include. So do we think we then just, do we think that helps address part of that? I guess I'm trying to figure out, do we have enough coalesced and what's our action item going forward?
But
Okay, go ahead, Quentin.
I was going to say, so the only thing Let's see. So do we think that having this like visible guidance to the outside world as kind of like that marker to the developer, hey, no one's saying this is the best you can do yet, is that helpful? To like see like a thumbs up, thumbs down on that, or
I'm not crazy about that for
you don't
users.
really like it?
I
Okay.
get that developers want the reassurance.
And based on Caroline's bit, the way I think you do it, or one way I would suggest we might think about doing it, is not imply that like this is like the lesser version of something to come, but just to say like this is just this is the economy version of the form, right? So the notion that like there are forms that are different classes. There are ones that are just like it fills out the form and then you get a thing, and there are ones with more bells and whistles, which is sort of a mid-level.
Or I like the idea of with guidance, without guidance.
Yeah.
But again, it's sort of like we'll be updating this with help in the next few months. But the thing is, your user needs the form when they come to it.
You don't need to tell them that.
But they can use
Tell
it.
them now.
So how I
saying,
imagine, Caroline, how I imagine this is a little icon in the top right or wherever that's a little seedling or a sapling, depending on what it is. And if they click on it, then they can go and see what that means. But otherwise, they don't see
they
it.
won't see it. They won't know. Yeah, I
Yeah,
suppose
more
that's okay.
just
Yeah.
for the developers. Yeah.
I mean, this
makes me
would be
thinking-
one of those things you just want to test and see how. I mean, I'm not totally against it. It just makes me a little concerned. But I think what you're saying is if it's just like this thing that people probably aren't going to see, like the About Us or something, then it's if the primary purpose of it is to reassure developers to feel like they can let it go, then it's a good idea. I just, you know.
And I would say that I see two purposes: the reassurance of developers, and just some expectation setting for the user. Like if someone knows like our 209A form, and they know like it helps, you do this big thing, and then they come and they do this other form that just helps them without actually helping them. It just helps. There needs to be some way to distinguish between forms that are like that. Now, maybe that's just about talking about, how long this form is going to take, and some framing there. But I just feel like there's an opportunity to set expectations appropriately.
Yeah.
And I think it should be about setting expectations for the form you're working on now. We don't have to say, and later there's going to be, a snazzy version.
Yeah.
Which is why I think maybe the seedling is not quite the right visual metaphor, because it implies like I'm getting the like early version thing. But based upon like what you can do, guidance and guidance.
But you could, you could just put them like Michelle's saying, you could just put these little icons in there and then not refer to what it is, a seedling or sapling, just have the image and then an explanation. This is an alternate to a PDF you can download. This one has guidance, and you don't like you're saying, don't indicate that there's something that's more, but the icon for us would be an indication. And again, I think if we think of our pro se people as like one stop, we may never see them again. And then advocates because like you say, you do the 209A, you have expectations, then you come back and do the security deposit letter. That I don't think people are going to make that connection. But if they're advocates, they will. So I feel okay about that.
All right. Okay, so then that needs some wordsmithing and thinking about what the visual metaphor is and how we want to do that.
Another feature.
And then the other thing I'm hearing is this idea that we need to have maybe some regular process for people to like go through their issue list and get guidance on what should make it into the release and what should be postponed. So maybe we just schedule that as a step. I'm not sure how to.
Are you not thinking that would be part of your demo? Your review?
It could be that it's part of the demo, but I wonder if people need it even.
At that stage, that might be too late, right? Like the thing I worry about is people come in with their demo. They've already started like 500 things that are not MVP, and so now they have something that would have been. There's an MVP in there, but they have to strip stuff away to get to it, as opposed to.
That's a good point too.
So I just want to.
Some things are easy, like review screens. You can turn off the sections.
We could do more frequent demos where people are not, where people are just along the way, then we could catch those. Or we could alternatively start with a much more clear definition of what an MVP looks like. I mean, if we had people that could wireframe it, I don't know.
think due to resource constraints, we want to try to empower the developers to make this determination as much as possible. So to the extent that we can provide a model and say, you make the call, and then if you're unsure, talk to us. Because anything that right now asks us to do more meetings than we're already doing does not seem likely.
What about as soon as you get the PDF to get the information in it, that's review it. What about something like that?
Yep, as soon as you get the information, don't worry about like, and we can say what some of the easiest things to implement are, like just implement text fields if you're not sure, and next do radio buttons, and if you have to, then checkboxes, and just like this hierarchy of what is the simplest type of field to implement.
And I think we should talk a little bit about what I'm not sure of, because I think this thing is use as many basic questions. Maybe the thing to do is use as many basic questions as you can. So your MVP would be use as many basic questions as you can, get the PDF filled, and then do a demo. And then we talk about which basic questions need to be adjusted. I mean, there are going to be some that aren't basic questions at all. And then they're going to, and also it makes people familiar with it. It helps make the basic questions better, and it also helps people get to your MVP. That's the whole point, right? Your basic questions.
Would it be reasonable to just completely basically replicate the PDF? You have the exact text that the PDF has in it with a text area or a text field, radio buttons for all the fields that have radio buttons in the form, and like it's just plain the PDF. Like we haven't done that really.
Yeah, that was originally what we talked about when we were thinking about MVPs.
So maybe that's MVPs. For basic questions, if people have been developing with us and they already know basic questions, then I'd say yes. If they haven't, then I'd say they can do what they can do, because otherwise it becomes they need to get to know the API before they make the form. So that's a bit of a balancing act, I think.
Okay, so I think we're all in the same sort of pointing the same direction. The question is, what are our action items that help us realize this? So we've got there's some stuff we can easily do for people who haven't come in yet. So this idea of modeling things at the beginning and just having this very clear MVP is just replicating the form as the first off. And that helps for people who will be doing new forms, which we are going to have a bunch of people coming through. But what do we do for those people who are currently in the mass of form?
Those I think are going to be messier to figure out. I think maybe an SME has to come on and say, this is an SME, probably one of you all come on and say, this is MVP, this is an MVP, this is, with an understanding of what is going on in the interview and an understanding of DocAssemble. Otherwise, I don't think there's going to be a way to effectively reduce it without increasing the complications that you're putting on people. I don't know. I
find SMEs are actually really bad at being able to judge that, but because they start thinking, at least they just have a parade of horribles running through their head. But I do think that it's
Michelle was including you as an SME.
I was actually talking specifically about you, Caroline, and I mean, Caroline is not an SME, I understand, but you and Kate, and like people who are familiar with DocAssemble, are familiar with the complications that come up with it, and also understand the subject matter, if we can get them. But you're all very busy, so yeah.
No, but I mean, it seems worth carving out time for that. Okay, so the idea is it's not necessarily like they have to be familiar with that subject matter, but that they have some legal background of some kind and can help make those choices. Okay, I think that sounds right. Someone in our team, I think, is the right person.
All right. So there's sort of, that almost sounds like there's like a soft feature freeze until you check in with someone.
Yeah, I think that needs, because I mean, both Matt and Gordon are pretty I mean, Gordon's incredibly, not that Matt isn't, right, but they both are very responsive. You know, within a day or two, they will meet. It's, you know, particularly with those two forms, with Mia and Mike. So, and you definitely need a substantive person to look at it before it goes. Some kind of substantive person.
Do we think, actually, I really like this idea of, and I guess we talked about it in different ways, but I think this is a good framing, Michelle, that brought up of like, we're going for just replacing the PDF. And can we tie that to saying we will publish it on the website once it meets the PDF test? It gets a special label that says this is just a PDF.
We could
It's fillable and
we
it
could
doesn't
have the icon for that be just a PDF, a picture of a PDF. That could be the icon for it, right?
Yeah, I think. Oh, Caroline, you muted yourself.
I meant instead of your sapling thing.
Instead
Yeah,
of the
instead of
sapling thing.
sapling.
Like the final
think
thing
the
could
idea
be
of
a
having those
little
be more
person
functional
icon
icons.
or something.
Yeah, or like little, yeah, it's like a paper, and then it's like a chat back and forth, like
Yeah.
bubbles, and then it's
And
like
I mean,
Not
this-
chat, because then they'll think
but
they can talk to someone, but yeah.
so I think
Yeah,
that
so we could basically have like 3 or 4 icons, and then 4 of them get displayed when all of the features are there, and just 1 is when it's the very minimum.
like that.
So what would the
So
icons be?
I also want to propose that reviews not be the whole group. Reviews can be just a single SME or an SME and a language person. And so we don't have to get everyone together to make it happen.
that's a good idea. And also,
Yeah,
if people.
And I
Well,
just push that even further, right? We're trying to empower the developers themselves if they can make the determination to say this is or isn't in bounds for the
For
SME.
sure, I'm just saying that like it's gonna need a review
Yeah,
anyway.
eventually.
And if we review early on with fewer people, then we're gonna have less features piled on top of. But when we're going for, if we switch, I'm just saying, especially for forms that are already created, right? That can't start at the PDF stage. I think, I mean, for ones that are PDF, I think people will be able to tell much more easily. But yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a plan. Do we feel like we all have enough information to implement this? Or
I'm
start
not sure what
working
I
on
would
implementing?
implement, but sure.
Yeah, so one is, I think mostly at this stage, where we're not talking about new forms, it's where we're implementation through modeling, right? So it's when we have new issues, we got to make sure everything has a milestone that has MVP. And then we've got to say things are in or out of bounds.
are you guys, I mean, mostly what we're talking about are forms that students are doing, right?
I can work on the hierarchy of questions if I get some time aside from the moratorium. If that's the priority, then I can work on that.
Why don't we have you finish the moratorium just because of the time deadline on that?
Okay. Then no, I'm not ready to work on it. You all go ahead.
Can I just
you can
double, I
model it
just
yourself
wanna,
in the moratorium, right? So like, is everything in there? Does it have to be in there, or
We have been, believe me, we've been having those conversations every time we have a PR review going, is this or isn't this? And we're narrowing it down. We're cutting out a lot of things finally. So super cool, super exciting.
the thing is, I just want to just double check on this review thing because, you know, with the 209A, obviously we couldn't have it just be PDF because for safety reasons. But my question was, if students are doing these forms, Quentin and David, you guys are going to look at them before they go. You're going to look at everything.
Nothing will ever go out without going through us.
Right. Okay. Because what I'm thinking is, Mariah was saying she just was so grateful that you caught that thing about you should never say yes, yes, I've committed criminal activity. Yeah. And she goes, when he said it, it was like duh. But you know, those are the kinds of things that not everybody would always think. So it is. Sometimes we need to make sure we get some other eyes that are not totally soaked on it in there. So that was all I wanted to say.
It's a really good
Yeah, I think some things will be missed, but as long as it's for the new ones, as long as they're conforming to the PDF, again, that will be a bit simpler because they'll just be conforming to the PDF. So beyond that, you're muted. So
yeah, I think we still need this review thing because of the risks. That
for sure.
You know, I don't think we're not talking about. I don't think any of this, unfortunately. Well, I don't think any of this is talking about reducing any of the reviews. In fact, it seems to be talking about doing more reviews.
I do think we've identified something really helpful, which is we're going to have an explicit release stage where it's minimal for every form. I think that's a new thing that we're saying. Every form should get released in some fashion. When it does less than we hope it will do in like a few more weeks even.
And the one exception would be if it was a form like a 209A, where that release itself could be dangerous.
Like
So
the
we will not do
258,
this.
if we were gonna do the
Yeah.
258E.
So like, and I can think of a couple family law ones where like I wouldn't want to just like put it up there.
We might want to capture these decisions somewhere.
But that we can mostly cover at the form selection point. So right now we're actually explicitly fit all the other next forms we're thinking of adding explicitly will be forms that do not have those issues. And that'll be the choice Quentin and I make when we're talking about assigning them out for our
Yeah.
students.
So you indicated on the triage form or something, right?
Yeah, so right now just add the stuff to the triage form and then we can look at them and see what we have.
And we do think there's probably not that many forms that fall in that category where it's better for us to not release anything that is as good as the PDF and no better, because the PDFs are out there for all the forms that we're talking about. So people are filling them out without any guidance. But I think there are some where we agree, like we're giving some imprimatur to it and we don't want to make people feel like they're getting more help than they're getting. So that's kind of the threshold.
Yeah, and the thing I think about is like, you don't want to just, so I'm thinking about like things like section 35s and whatnot, where like, you don't want to just make it easier for someone to petition to take away someone's liberty by just filling out the form. So even though there's already a form out there, making it super easy without providing guidance, I think is in the same range as the 209A, which that you can do harm. But we're not going to choose those forms.
Could we do, but when you rationalize which forms you pick, could you add a comment or a note, maybe have a notes column next to it that just says why you made the decision you made, like for that form you just named, like you believe it will put people in danger or whatever.
Yeah, lack of context allows for danger. Yeah, no, we can articulate those. But I'm just mentioning it now so that people don't feel like, oh my goodness, I don't want to just have things that go directly to the form. I can think of all the things that'd be wrong. I'm just saying there's going to be a backstop to prevent that.
And I will say we're not going to get anything to the court that way anyway. They're going to have some nitpicky thing for every form. So we're just talking about making it a downloadable form, because I think the most risk we'll have for these early release forms.
I do think with everything the court's going through right now, we're not likely to see their response time increase or speed up. So in case like that was a diplomatic way of saying that. All right. Okay.
We left such a generous amount of time to talk about the last blocker, which I think is testing.
Yes.
So there may be some stuff there as I develop the testing that could be sped up because it could be automated, but let's not count on that for now at least until after the eviction moratorium, because just a lot of time is going into that. But I think you're right. I think new coders are going to have trouble identifying what the crucial tests are, like it might be useful if they note pages that fail twice as they develop, right? Pages that have 2 times where unexpected things happen, and then they isolate those as specific cases as they go along the way, because I think they will have trouble later identifying what were problem areas. So that's that's the best, but I do think it'd be reasonable to say, these are the crucial, or if they identify, or if SMEs identify this part has to be done right, that's a thing to write a test for. So I think those are the 2 situations to write a test for.
I think we might want to change our philosophy of testing a little bit, which is different from like this form. This interview has this exact output every time, to we've gone through it and it is correct when we go through these set number of scenarios. Does that reframing, I think, might be helpful, even if ultimately we're trying to look for the same types of errors and the same type of things.
I guess I didn't understand. I don't understand the difference, but it sounds okay to me. So
yeah, I think you're just trying to articulate a different framing, right? Yeah. Okay, and then I think that dovetails well with our discussion of MVP. So obviously the type of testing differs from our just PDF MVP as opposed to something with logical branching. So that might also it may be that there are different levels of scrutiny that are required for different, for what stage you are in the form process. If you're the sapling, the scrutiny is different than if you're the big oak. All right, okay. All right, well, those were the main things I wanted to talk about. Does anyone want to do stand up? in the 10 minutes, but before we do Teaching Tuesday.
So I have that as my stand-up thing was that we went with Michelle. Did anyone see the head that came out of the Boston skyline?
Yes, it was very scary.
You can watch the playback, Quentin. So met with Michelle on Sunday to kind of go through some of our code, and we were left with a couple outstanding things, and then we went through some things by ourselves. Then we had Quentin just like take a quick look at it, and it's good to go. We just need to run some kind of, I think this is where the testing comes in. We need to run some informal tests. This is MVP. You know, there's a lot of enhancements that I think can be made, but I'm really chuffed with what we've done. So we've sent it to Ben for one last kind of SME, just to make sure that there's nothing in there that's going to detrimentally affect anyone who's filing this cover sheet. And I will keep you updated on if we get any feedback from him. But otherwise, yeah, Lance and I are just going to be informally testing it this week. And then I'm not too sure.
I would say remember to videotape
Right,
it, because
sure.
if you do run, just remember to videotape it when
Yeah,
you test
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Of course. So that's my stand-up announcement. Who's next?
Kate has a meeting in 9 minutes.
Go, Kate.
I don't think I have much to do besides reading Caroline's messages that I've been neglecting. I'm meeting with Derek maybe on Wednesday about the pet protection.
Oh yeah,
Sounds right.
that sounds right.
Yeah, I think that's his name.
Do you remember what time you're meeting with him?
It might be, I might have written it down. Let me see.
Because I'm just wondering if I can grab some
Noon?
time with you before or after.
Noon.
Okay.
Ideally, yeah, I could do it. Ideally not Wednesday. Wednesday's my day in the office.
Okay. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
that's
try to
fine.
like save Wednesdays for things I can like only do in the office.
I get it. Yeah. Well, maybe Thursday we can.
Yeah, Thursday's good for
Maybe we
me.
can do some 209A and contempt, you know, like depending how much. Because I
Yeah.
think there's things I just need to like, yes, no type of stuff.
Yeah, maybe Thursday morning.
Okay. I've got a cavity. I'm dentist Thursday morning. Okay, we'll figure it out.
We'll
but
talk, yeah.
I'm gonna put my thing in there.
Like we need to start a oral care.
Yeah,
I know, I got it
seriously.
from Michelle. If Michelle
Therapy
hadn't
group,
had a bad tooth, I wouldn't have gotten infected.
I'm so sorry.
I was
I
thinking more
set
like
a
a
bad
support group.
example.
For all.
Support, I can do that. I've got like it's something, I don't know, a cavity as well. I'm gonna go to the dentist next week.
I did skip my dentist appointment at the beginning of the pandemic. I
Why?
had to
Me
reschedule.
too.
That's me too.
My dentist keeps telling me, yeah, my dentist, every dentist I go to is like, no, you should get your cleaning. And I'm like, really? And like one dentist was like, I was like, I think the CDC said don't get your cleaning. And then they were like, no, that was the WHO. And I'm like,
Mhm.
and like, your point is, sorry, we
Right.
should move on. But
All right, moving on.
anyway,
Any other dental emergencies anyone would like to declare?
no, but report on the moratorium. It'll probably be good to have people start running through and just trying different things. Mariah and I have an interesting puzzle to solve, and there are still some outstanding MVPs. I think Caroline and Mariah have some things that they can like describe, if you can describe them, you know, if you can describe what you want it to look like, then, and there's other things that it's like, this probably isn't what you intended, but I think it's sufficient. So, right. Just to add clarity from that review last week. So we're doing a much better job of narrowing down what MVP means. So yeah, I
You know,
don't,
modeling our discussion before it even happened.
Yes. Yes. Well, yeah. And the multi-user thing still makes me a bit nervous at times because things keep popping up with it that I'm like, either I didn't understand about the code or like things, yeah, I don't know. So, but we'll try and test that really thoroughly. But like if you use the same browser, then it's different. There's a bug that's happening only for Mariah, which is why I want Caroline to test it too. And like,
Yeah, I'll do that
know,
this afternoon.
because it's so far it's happened only for Mariah, and I'm like, I don't know how to solve this problem.
On her phone? Is it on her phone?
Yes. So we'll bring it up in the Teaching Tuesday. If she can hop on, and we've arranged some other times that we'll just some little weird times more than usual that we'll meet to try and resolve more things. But there's a lot of like, I do something and then I need to, of course, wait for a review, and then, you know, so, but I think we're getting much closer, and I hate to put deadlines. I mean, I hate to put like estimated timelines on things like this. I think it'll be less than 2 weeks, which isn't great because then it's almost done.
And
But
it's
I
over,
think it
yeah.
definitely will be less than 2 weeks. So
Do you, Quentin, have you got any idea about the moratorium, whether we're going to be able to, would they talk about that in the coalition on Friday?
I don't think it's going to get extended again. But I'm not sure. I think that actually the CDC moratorium has given Baker some cover to not extend
Yeah.
Massachusetts one.
Mhm.
So I suspect it'll end October 17th.
Mhm.
all right.
Sure, guys.
So, you know, we might have it for a couple weeks.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well,
gonna
it's
be really bad.
created a lot of development, but
Yeah.
as
I
far
think
as
it's, you know, it's sustainable stuff that you've added. I mean, I guess one
That's
question
it.
is,
I mean-
what if you took out the multi-user stuff? Could you release something now? Or is it too entangled with everything
that
else?
would be super, that would be very
Mariah would jump
entangled.
off a building.
I think it would take longer to figure that out. And there's like lots of little things that aren't that related.
Well, this is a good, I mean, I'm sure we'll reuse the workflow and some of the
Signatures
thinking other places.
Yeah.
So I just have a little like unsuccessful thing, but there was one screen that was very complicated that we redid, not quite along the ways you guys recommended. And I was going to go test it at the laundromat on Friday. It was pouring rain.
Oh,
And
right.
it was indoors, so I didn't do it. So I went up on Saturday
Another great method.
and I approached 4 people and I couldn't get anybody to test it. It was just like one after another. It was so frustrating, but at least I'm a little bit more informed about a plan. So I've got a place, and you know, it may not happen for this interview, but you know, it's underway. And I heard so many objections, it's ridiculous. So
oh my
I'll
God.
keep trying. Not
Objections just to like
Reasons why
not
they
wanting to do anything.
help you.
Yeah, one lady didn't have her glasses and she didn't want to use my glasses, and then, you know, she's like had a string this long. This one guy, he might have been a landlord, you know, I don't know, but I think he didn't want to, because you have to sort of paint the picture of what
Mhm.
before you see the screen what it is, and he probably doesn't vote the same party I vote for. He did not seem interested at all. And then I can't remember what the other 2 women were about, but it was, I know one woman was like an activist, and she told me I should go to the homeless shelter, and she's trying to save pollinators, and she's like Looney Tunes. So
Pollinators. Interesting.
so I don't know. She goes, I'm an activist too. You're doing a great job. And I think just take the flip and just look at the screen.
So what I am going to onboard Luke quickly. So I think Michelle or somebody who's going to be on the whole Teaching Tuesday call, could you please record that? And then you can just put it on Google Drive, and then I'll upload it to YouTube and then delete it off Google Drive.
I can't record, and I might not be on the whole thing if we
Not
solve
sure
that
there's-
problem and want to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure
But-
there's going to be a whole one. So this is the thing. I'm not sure we have critical mass to keep it together.
We might not have enough people here.
Well, let's see. Yeah, it's 12:59, and we don't have any of the other people who generally join in yet.
Want to give it
Okay.
5 or 10 minutes and then see?
Well,
We're
I
probably
mean,
gonna have
I'm
Mariah.
gonna try and get
I can do the
Mariah.
recording.
Okay.
Or,
I'll see you guys. I'll see you.
We would
Question
have
is whether or not-
by now.
I'll see you guys
we
too,
want to-
Quentin.
Bye, Kate.
Okay, bye,
Good luck.
Dave.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Dave.
Okay.
Put that shirt on. Is that the shirt that you're gonna wear, or?
No, it's not this shirt.
Okay.
No. I just went out. I realized I could go out on the porch, so that's where I am. It's a little cold.
No kidding.
I'll see you guys just now. Bye.
I still